Hi everyone, Steve Perryman again on the Steve Perryman podcast. Lots of things happening, signings, tours, etc. I've just looked after my daughter's dog for about 12 days and he's just gone home about 20 minutes ago. So like when you give back grandchildren, it's lovely to have them, but just enough. So by sometimes looking after him, Marshy, it saves us from getting a dog. So can't all be bad. And my wife is good at picking up the poop and stuff, which I can't quite handle. So that's how much of a brave man I am. So hi, Tom, welcome. Thank you very much for being involved again. As ever, how's life?
Hi, Steve. Yeah, it's hot. I've pulled myself back up from the puddle in the floor that I melted into this afternoon. But yeah, it's only going to get hotter as well by the sound of it.
Yeah.
So just buckling in for the heat wave.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So any questions for me, Tom? Because I've got some questions to answer. Gary Stevens, for instance, and a couple from Steve Borthwick, the head coach of Leicester Tigers, successfully having won their championship. So I
mean, my question for you this week is a bit of a sad one, actually, after what's happened in Japan, and given your time back there, I just wondered how that's affected you, the news of the assassination of the Japanese Prime Minister.
Yeah, well, so if it was America, I think, unfortunately, we're all used to such events, and sometimes worse in terms of numbers. But I'm totally shocked by what's happened there with the Prime Minister, because it's not that type of country. And so I'm not aware that people are allowed guns or have guns, etc. But my experience of Prime Minister Abe was the fact that the last time me and Kim visited Japan, we went with a very good friend who worked for both me and Ozzy at S-Pulse there. He's left the club. He's now got running his own business, and he's got a business making supporter items for all sorts of clubs, but particularly baseball clubs. So we went with him to attend a game in Sendai, which is one of his customers, and which was our first experience of a baseball match. And it was great, and you saw the way that the Japanese promote these games, and I suppose lots of it copied from America, as is baseball, for instance. So anyway, we needed to get home, and we get to the station from the baseball stadium, and it's obvious that there's lots of black suited men around, and a station in Japan is always busy. So I said to our friend, wow, there's something serious going on here with all these black suits. And I thought it was like maybe a big wedding or something. And he said, oh no, there's a big political rally, probably just finished in Sendai. So anyway, we go in the station, and Matsuba said, I'm going to go and get you 2 tickets. They're ordered, but I'm going to go and pick them up. So he did, and he was gone for about 10 minutes, and then he come back to us, and he said, I need your passports. Wow, what are we buying? Train tickets, or what are we purchasing here? Anyway, so he goes back to the place, the window, and about 20 minutes later, he comes back to us and says, yeah, all fine. And we go and stand on the station. We're waiting for the Shinkansen to take us to Tokyo. And all of a sudden, an army of black suits comes towards us down the platform, led by the Prime Minister. Wow. So you take a step back out of respect, and assuming that he's going to walk through us, or even if he's on our carriage, he should go on first. Anyway, he stopped still, and please. So we sat in the same carriage with the Prime Minister of Japan, and I suppose the people with him, and there's about 20 young men, but black suits, white shirts, very smart, everyone. And I expect they were his bodyguards. Who knows? But he was fine. And so we sat down in our seats with first class, green car as it's called, and he walks past and he says hello to us and everyone he just spent a bit of time with. So incredibly nice man, very respectful, and therefore, as cruel as that situation is, it's actually more cruel when it's someone that of course we don't know him, of course we don't, but that we came into contact with. And of course, the point about our passports was that we were being checked out. These foreigners are supposedly in the same carriage as our Prime Minister. We better know who they are. And I think they had a bit more problem with Kim being born in Wood Green than me being born in West London. So I think that was the point that took a bit longer. I'm joking, of course. So it's not a joking situation, but horrendous, just horrendous. And the Japanese people are still reeling. Of course they will. They'll be reeling for a long time. So anyway, that's my story about Prime Minister Abe. And that's not politics. That's not where he's coming from as per decisions and stuff. That's just how he treated us in a very small way, but very respectfully on the day. So we're going to get into the questions. The first one is from Gary Stevens, who made such a good impression on the podcast. His delivery was great. His use of words and everything about him was terrific. So Gary, he gave this question some time ago. I don't think he's got any older looking since he gave the question. So play it for us, Tom, and then I'll answer it.
Steve, hello. I'm on my travels. I wonder if you can work out where I am. The clue is in the background. Anyway, the question for you is, during your many years at Tottenham, who was or who were the young players that you thought were really going to be big hits at Tottenham who didn't quite make it there? You know, when I joined the club, Ian Crook was a great young player. Yes, he played for Spurs, didn't cut it there, went on to Norwich, had a great career there. What's your answer, Steve? Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Gary, good question. So, you mentioned about Graham Souness. Of course, he was a talent. Sort of an obvious answer, which therefore I'm not going to give because he went on and did wonderful things in his career. So I want to talk about two players. One, I agree with you, Gary, Ian Crook. That was when I was a player. When I went away and then came back, there was a young player called Danny Hill. And I thought Danny Hill was a magnificent player in the Mickey Hazard mould. Both players were midfield and part of a club that was developing its own players. I think I've said that before, but say during the Ian Crook era when he played for us, the captain of the club, myself, his homegrown, Glenn Hoddle, who many rated as the best technical player in the country, homegrown. So the homegrown players got a stature, and they sort of had an expectation about them from their point of view that they could get into the first team. There was a route to the team, and then you're not an also-ran. You can be a somebody, be it the captain or be it the best player, the best technical player. So Neither of the two made it. For Spurs, they certainly had a good career, the pair of them. Ian Crook particularly, who went to Norwich with a lot of other good young players at Tottenham at the time. Mark Bowen, even Ian Culverhouse, John Polston. So Norwich obviously cherry-picked our reserves and our young talent at the time. And of course, the club can't be forced to sell them, so they wanted to sell them on. And I think that's a bit of another clue there to how you get good young players out of clubs, that you, within a change of manager from Keith to Peter, and actually a new chairman type, Irving Scholar, that is the time when you get in where you can not steal a player away, no, but they maybe have big plans and they want money for other things. So why not cash in on some young players that maybe you think won't make it? Danny and Ian Crook, I would say, suffered from a physicality of their game, which is a big thing if you were going to play in the top league. And of course, we can name lots of players. Ozzy wasn't big. Luka Modric wasn't big. And but remember Bill Nicholson saying, a good big and beats a good little. And so those two I mentioned, Ozzy and Modric, who world-class players. And I would say that they had a world-class temperament to deal with their size or their lack of height. You know, you can be more agile if you're smaller. So it didn't hold them back. But I think in the end, when I looked at Danny Hill and Ian Crook, in terms of being not top level, it was the physicality that they missed out on, and ability. You know, Modric could get around the field. Ozzy Ardiles unbelievably could get around the field. So they overcome their size by, okay, not crashing into tackles, but being able to take a tackle because players of their ability draw opponents onto them. And obviously they've got strength in their legs to be able to deal with the challenges. But maybe Ian Crook, who now I think works in Australia, and Danny Hill, who I message probably once every 3 or 4 months, I'm not sure that they could go the 90+ minutes to show their worth. But two terrific, talented players. So yeah, Gary, hope that answers your question. And now, Tom, if you don't mind, we'll go on to Steve Borthwick, who has some good questions for me.
Hi, Steve. I hope you're really well. I had 2 questions for you. The first question I wanted to pick your brains on and hear from your experiences around are those games that were in the biggest pressure circumstances, whether that's cup finals or etc. And those players that you knew were going to always step up when the big games came, you knew they get better. I've seen it before in rugby. I'm interested to hear your experiences about when it comes to the business end, as people describe it. Who are the people that really step forward? Who are the people that you knew could rely upon that just got better and better and better the bigger the game?
Steve, yeah, this one's got me thinking. So I answered a question for Norman Giller. He asked the question of a couple of podcasts ago, if there was a game where we had to win, it was life or death, who's the one player that I would make sure I selected in the team from the players that I played with? And if you remember, I answered Pat Jennings. I'm not backing off that answer, by the way. But in some ways, as the ultimate defender, the last line of defense, Pat Jennings comes back to the quote that I sometimes use. It's easier to destroy than create. So Pat Jennings being the last line of defense is destroying the opponent's attacks, but incredibly important. So to be a bit different about the answer, the way Steve's put this question, I'm going to go for Ossie Ardiles. The players that the more important the game, the more they step up to the performance. And this also highlights the fact that Ossie and Ricky signed, I think it was last Sunday, just gone, 44 years ago. Keith Birkinshaw went over there and did the job of encouraging them to join us. As Ossie always tells me, and I think I've told you in the past, Ossie said he wouldn't have signed if he'd known that we just got promoted. So the history could have been so different. But it's obvious that, you know, for Ossie to play a home World Cup in his country, in his own country, and they were so successful and eventual winners, 1978, that this man delivered. And, you know, especially in the final, and when I'm thinking now about the FA Cup final, okay, we all remember Ricky's goal. Ossie could destroy and create. That was the beauty, and that's why Ossie was more consistent than Ricky. But I was watching a film the other night, past game, of us winning the replay, FA Cup replay at Old Trafford, and Ossie scored about 2 minutes to go for a great victory. It was the day that Emilio Alexic got carried off and Glenn went in goal. And okay, the whole team had to step up that day, the whole team. But Ossie stepped up in a way that, and actually what I noticed about in my memory, of course, what comes at you is the fact that he scored the winning goal, the only goal of the game. Actually, in the game, he didn't perform that well, and Ossie actually was looking very, very tired. But we'd used our one substitute. John Pratt came on when Emilio Alexic had to go off. But Ossie just kept going. He had this inner strength, this inner mentality. And so stepped up at that vital moment to get that goal. And that's coming from years back, I would suggest, with Ossie's mentality. This is a tough little player. And I don't mean go around kicking players, but he had a belief in himself, and he had a purpose, and he had a desire. And if you put all those things together, that means that he was a step up man. And even if you think about the replay where Ricky took the headlines, rightly so, because of that special goal, Ossie had a part to play in all our goals. And I'm not saying Glenn didn't, or that I played badly or whatever, no, but Ossie was on the starting line of us winning that particular trophy. I know he left and therefore wasn't involved in 82, and he was sort of injured but came on as sub in 84. But the bigger the game, the more Ossie performed. And I think that's what Steve's asking the question about. So, yeah, it sort of comes into the second part of the question, was when did I know that we were going to be a team? And actually, again, that YouTube film of that Manchester United game at Old Trafford, that said to me that we had the heart to be a team. We didn't quite have the ability yet, but to overcome a good Manchester United team, a very vociferous crowd, to do it as late as we did, in the manner that we did, it really was a put your boots on and fight. And I think also that game highlighted to Keith, I think it did, that if you've got all that about you, your ability not to get beaten, but you've got to get goals from somewhere. And unfortunately, on that night, we were showed up that Ricky was the only one that was going to possibly score. And that sort of sounds disrespectful to the forwards we had that day. It's not meant to be. But I think off the back of that, Keith went and bought Archibald and Crooks, and that give us the next step up to be viable and a more challenging team, not only for trophies, but then for league position and eventually a European trophy. So Ozzy sort of answers a few questions there, Steve. And well done, by the way, to Steve Borthwick for his great victory with the Leicester Tigers. Fantastic performance by his team. But yeah, so there's my answers. I'll highlight again, 44 years ago, last weekend, Ozzy and Ricky signed for the club. It's a masterstroke, really, by Keith Birkinshaw, masterstroke. And me as captain that used to have to communicate with Keith a lot, I didn't know anything about that particular those signings. And so when I picked the paper up in the morning, having sort of wearily trudged down the stairs to pick up the paper off the mat and open it up, and Spurs scooped the world. Wow, what a moment. And as people have said to me, and the rest is history. So I think when you sign such high profile players, it puts all of us on a different level. And Ozzy used to joke with me, Steve, I made your career. Is that right, Ozzy? Yeah. Yes, I did. Because when I came, you were driving a Ford Cortina. And by the time you finished playing at Tottenham with me, you had a Jaguar. So I helped make your career. So typical Aussie, lots of belief in himself and lots of belief in what he enabled the rest of us to do. I suppose all of a sudden there has to be new rates of wages and stuff like that. But yeah, so Ozzy and Ricky, two great signings. Ozzy, the way I'm talking, Ricky could be better on a particular day as per that goal. But overall, Ozzy was the more consistent one and the one who really, really stepped up on the big moments. So, yeah. How's that, Tom?
Lovely.
Finished?
Great answers.
Yeah. So, well done. Thank you for listening, everyone. And, yeah, we're soon back into the new season. How impressive! How impressed are you, Tom, with the buys?
It's just weird, isn't it? Not waiting to the last minute for a change, and actually seeing a real strategy. It feels like, at least behind the signings, and I think especially, Bissouma's probably the one who excites me most in terms of how certain, in terms of who played against us last season. He was the best player on the pitch when Brighton beat us, and even in the game we beat them in the FA Cup, he was brilliant then as well.
Very much so.
But I think the signing of Richarlison is the kind of real interesting one, given that it's the position we're probably strongest in, and we've still gone out to looking at it saying, we've got all these games to play this season.
Squad strength.
Yeah, and I think also it's like the first time we've ever bought a kind of backup striker in recent years anyway, who's Premier League ready, and we know he's Premier League ready, and it's not like having a punt on someone from Holland or from Vinicius, for example, who didn't do too badly, but he certainly wasn't a kind of ready for the Premier League in the way that we know Richarlison is going to be, and he can come off the bench. And I think last season we were always looking at our bench, thinking, there's not much on there, Bergwijn against Leicester aside, to kind of come on and really change a game. And I think next season that's going to be the main difference for us, I hope.
Okay, we're going to stop there as per the new signings, because the next podcast will be about Howard coming back from loan period. And we'll talk about all those new signings, what it means to us. And possibly by the time that happens, there might be one or two more signings, who knows? I feel it's a little bit like me going clothes shopping. I hate it, won't go. Don't get me in for that. But then eventually I get dragged there and I buy a shirt, and then it's almost as if you buy the first one. Well, sort of weren't so bad, was it? So you buy it.
Might as well get another while I'm here.
4 or 5, and then same with trousers and maybe a couple of pairs of shoes, and off you go. And it's all like you've gone over the line the first time, and then it's plain sailing from there. I think that's maybe what's happened to Mr. Levy. But I think, of course, Conte has given the chairman the confidence that he can not only bring good names to the club, but he can improve those players, which if you're a chairman of any club, you would like to think that your outlay is not going to diminish. You know, even the older player, Perisic, is it? Perisic, yeah. Okay, but he didn't cost us anything. Yeah, wages are not insignificant, I'm sure. But if you've got a manager that's keeping the players, the screw tightened on them, those close players should improve. And therefore, when the day of leaving comes, then, you know, as long as you've not lost too much money on these players that have helped you get up the league table and be successful and hopefully a trophy, which of course there's no guarantees for that. But anyway, we'll let, I know Howard is an avid watcher of all these rumours, and he listens to them and goes into their background, etc. So be great to listen to him next time we're on. So well done, Tom. Thank you very much. And thank you for listening, everyone. The troops are in Korea, South Korea, which I went there with the Japanese team and had some good results. Fantastic place. And we've all enjoyed watching their welcome by Son. So yeah, hopefully they're getting fit. I've read about players being sick, etc. today in the training. Not for the wrong reason, but for the fact they're putting themselves out. And this is how I see Conte. He's going to have a fit group of players next season. So hopefully that can lead us on to better things. So yeah, come on you Spurs, and see you next time. Thanks for listening.